Hello everybody, how's it going today? Glowplasma here about World Trigger chapter number 258. This chapter is titled The Away Mission Test Phase 2 Part 1. And this was our chapter for October of 2025. And of course, I just mentioned this is the chapter for October of 2025, and this video is coming out in April of 2026. And yeah, guys, I went 7 months without talking about World Trigger, and I have no excuse for myself besides that I'm a college student. Things got really busy, and once I don't cover a series, it's very hard for me to get back into the regular scheduled times of recording a video for it, you know? And yeah, I don't really feel too good about it. I love talking about World Trigger. It's legitimately my favorite series to do on this channel, and I do a lot of very weird and different series. But there's just something about World Trigger that I love so much. This chapter really encompasses in every single way, not only subverting my expectations, but giving us idea of tactics and just so many characters for us to discuss about all of their various actions, especially as we are heading in to the second phase, the combat phase of the away mission tests. And of course, as everybody knows at this point, this chapter is decently long, clocking in at a solid 37 pages, but whenever we realize that about, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, solid like 11 of them are just strictly going over all of the characters who are fighting in this battle. I mean, hey, it's still not bad. It's still like a 26-page chapter. And there's just so much going on here that I'm just so glad and happy today. For the first time ever, I've got a second monitor up beside me, and this second monitor legitimately just has open the World Trigger Volume 24 free preview, and I have gone far enough into it to legitimately just to where I can see the page with all of the provisional squad characters on it, because I may have reread World Trigger last year, and then I didn't talk about it, so I lost all of my knowledge on all of the character names and everything around there. So we're just going to see how this recording goes through. But of course, if we don't remember what happened last time on World Trigger, and believe me, I had to go back and reread the past few chapters to really get my bearings on how this entire second phase of the exam is getting ready to go. Last chapter was a really awesome chapter, focusing on the whole idea of the second phase is getting ready to begin. There was a rather large discussion at the beginning of last chapter, just talking about everything that's going on here and the Tryon soldier creation process, about how the B-rank squads have a lot more sort of leeway with Tryon soldiers having much more of a big deficit in the budget than the A-rankers do. And a lot of that also came to a head whenever we sort of saw some stuff about like Murakami was talking about like, hey, I can probably figure out how to use mixed bullets, something that will definitely be coming up in this second part of the fight. And we also got a very nice moment with Oki last chapters. He was sort of recounting his time at the border, pretty much. What do you call those things? I was about to call it a funeral home, and that is the wrong word entirely. An orphanage, that's what I'm thinking of. Why did my mind go to funeral home? You know, we're not going to question that at all. But his time at an orphanage is pretty much going around and seeing kids and pretty much reassuring Osamu to like, hey, you have what it takes, and we are rooting for you, Osamu. Show what you're made of, and get on the away mission. And the very end of last chapter was all of the away squads pretty much heading to their door, and of course, we're focusing on Suwa's Squad 7, with Suwa, Katori, Osamu, Oki, and Ui all walking towards the door, getting ready for the second phase of the away mission test. And that's where we open up this chapter of World Trigger number 258, again titled The Away Mission Test, Phase 2, Part 1. As we see that it is 8:45 a.m., and the door to the sealed environment has opened up. And of course, walking down the steps, finally seeing a different part of life for a little while, as we see Suwa, Ui, Osamu, Katori, and Oki leaving the sealed environment in that order. And as they sort of walk out, there's a man standing here holding a briefcase that holds a bunch of triggers inside of it, as he's pretty much just like an examiner guy, and he's like, hello all, and we see all the provisional squads have their own unique responses. Ui's like, hey, hi there. Osamu's like, oh, greetings, sir. And Oki just responds with a nice old howdy. But either way, everybody gets up there as this attendant starts to just explain a little bit about the away mission. He's like, all right, here are your triggers for Phase 2. Activating these will transport you to one of the terminals on the map. It'll be the same destination for all 5 of you. The test begins at 9 a.m. sharp, but until then, be sure to stay within a 30-meter radius of your terminal. And once you spawned in, you can communicate with all of your other allied squads. And Katori's like, oh, a little bit of prep time. And Osamu's like, yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. But as the two of them are sort of going over that, this attendant then just says, well, there are actually 2 additional rules. The first one is that those with away mission experience cannot be commander for either team. And everybody sort of looks over and like, oh, we're having a commander for this? As the attendant also just explains, the second rule is that Agent Jin, a member of the A-rank team, will be allowed to utilize his side effect, but he's forbidden from telling others any information he gains via the side effect. And of course, being that it's been so long since we've really messed with Jin's side effect, I really like how Osamu's standing here being like, right, Jin's side effect. His foresight, of course, just reminding the audience back home, yeah, it's been a little while, Jin can see the future, right? But either way, the attendant just says, okay, and that's actually all of the additional rules. Any questions? As Ui sort of reaches forward holding the lunchbox in her hand, she's like, oh, do we also have to return the triggers that we used in phase 1 of the exam? And the attendant just says, no, not yet. All your triggers will be collected after phase 2 is over. And Oki's like, oh, in that case, can you tell me who's covering the defense missions for today and tomorrow while this exam is going on? He's like, is it like the bottom B rankers? As the attendant just says, yes, along with select C rank agents. Agents from other branches will also join in shifts as well, as we get a little bit of like a note here that there are of course other branches besides Tacoma and Suzunari that exist out in the wider world of World Trigger, and pretty much we just get a little bit thing that says populated by agents who prioritize their schooling or jobs and who don't participate in the rank wars, which makes sense. Tamakoma and Suzunari are sort of these sort of like special 2 squads that do a little bit of both, and they're not main border, but they're like offshoots, but they do rank war stuff, so like that's why we know them in the series pretty much. As the attendant also explains that in the meantime, Director Shinoda, Agent Amo, and Captain Nasu will be swapping to supervise the squads assigned to defense. And Oki's like, alright, got you then, so we can all breathe easy. As the attendant just looks at him and says, well, now then, I wish you all luck today. As we see that Suwa, Ui, Oki, Osamu, and Katori all grab their triggers and just say, trigger on! And as they do that, they transport into a rather large gymnasium. As all of their boots hit the wooden tiles on the floor, and here they are with their small terminal behind them. And so it was like, oh, a gymnasium, huh? As I also love Katori. It's just like, yeah, major school gym vibes, pretty much. As she also sort of like checks out her surroundings and then looks down at the outfit she's wearing and starts to comment. She's like, whoa, check out our outfits here, like just like the ones that were on our battle sim avatars. And Oki's like, yeah, no kidding, though the colors look a little bit different though. And she's like, hey, whatever, this is just a fashion disaster pretty much, right? And she then looks over at Ui, who we see that, unlike Katori, who is wearing sort of the regular, like, border, sort of like high-collared vest jacket almost, she is wearing this, of course, the 07 for Suicide Squad 7 is emblazoned upon it, and she's got pants that are then tucked into her boots down below. We see that Ui is here sort of wearing, like, more of a mini skirt almost with these sort of leggings on underneath it. And Katori looks over like, hey, why do operators get to look cuter? And Ui just laughs like, oh, do you really think so? But either way, Suwa also is looking at Ui, and he sees on her back, and he's like, oh, hey, that thing on your back, it must be the special field laptop for operators, Ui. And Ui sort of looks at him like, oh yeah, I think it is. And as she sort of like starts to motion and fiddle with it, it comes off of her back and almost like zooms over in front of her, as we see like there's a little bit of like an arm attachment from the back that sort of is propelling and holding it up so she can just like type on it in front of her pretty much. It's a really cool little design. Like whenever I first read this, I'm like, oh, is the laptop just like floating there? But no, we see there's like a little bit of a wire that's sort of holding it up and supporting it. And man, it's like a robot arm. It's just really, really cool, you know? And as Ui is looking at the laptop here, she says, all right, so it looks like we're currently at Terminal T7. I assume that's because we are Squad 7 most likely. And she's like, well, either way, not every squad has spawned in yet. As we sort of understand that the T stands for temporary/provisional squad. So T for temporary, and we also get a little bit of a look at A for A rankers pretty much. And we also get a little bit of an idea that on Ui's laptop, she can see the condition of everybody on her squads, of course, everybody on Squad 7 there, and also the positions and locations of all of the other terminals on the map, every single one, along with all of the other provisional squad members. As we see just like a cluster of lights here around T7, T1, T8, T11, all of this various stuff, and along with that, we notice that there's nobody on T9 yet, pretty much. So like, hey, Mizukami Squad 9, they just haven't spawned in. But as Ui is checking all this out, Osamu's like, hey, I'm going to head up to the roof to scope out our surroundings. And Oki's like, yeah, I'll go ahead and join you. And Sua's like, all right, guys, remember, we got a 30-meter radius. And Osamu and Oki are both like, yep, you got it. As they go around and start climbing up, and they eventually get onto the roof of this gymnasium. And as they're looking around, we just see a massive cityscape. And Osamu's like, wow, we can even see the mountains from right here. And Oki's like, yeah, over on this side as well. So we sort of understand they're in a valleyed city. And it was really at this point where I sort of was like, wait a second. World Trigger normally takes place in these battle cityscape maps. And for some reason going into this, I figured it would be more of oh, it's like a jungle or something that they're fighting in, sort of a different environment for World Trigger. But it just makes so much sense that they would just use the assets they sort of already have in this larger cityscape for all of the provisional and A-Ring squads to fight in. It's not something I was expecting, but hey, what can I say? Ashihara loves his cityscapes. But as Oki is sort of looking around, he's like, wow, it's a way bigger map than I could ever imagine. There might be some serious distance between each terminal here. And Osamu looks around like, yeah, you're right. And he starts just to think, which means that a poor first move could be extra costly. As we see that both Oki and Osamu head back into the gymnasium, as we see that Ui and Kotori are investigating their terminal here in the moment. And we see there's a massive 1,000 emblazoned on it. And Kotori's like, hey, what's the big number for, that 1,000, I mean? And Ui's like, okay, well, let's see. All of the other terminals have numbers on them too, so maybe they're an HP of a shield or something like that. As we look at T11, yeah, they've got a 1,000 on them. And then they took down the 997, taking 3 points of damage. And Ui's like, oh, that's weird, Squad 11's number just dropped down. And Ui's like, really, before the action even started? But as this is happening, Ui starts to get an incoming call on her computers. We see that Kuruma's Squad 5 is calling over. And we see over at Terminal T5, Kuruma, Asano, and Korai all standing here. As we see that Kuruma's like, hey there guys, this is Kuruma from Squad 5. And he was like, hey, how are you guys doing? And he's like, I'm doing fine. Either way, now that we're all here on the field, we need to elect a commander. And Sue was like, yeah, it has to be somebody who's never been on an away mission, right? And Kuruma's like, yeah, so they say. As we see a minute or two later passes, and now everybody's sort of in a massive group call. As we see that Utagawa over at Terminal T1 is speaking, he's like, those with away mission experience would be me, Utagawa, plus Kakuchihara, and I suppose Ozma and Ninamiya also fall into that category as well. Over at Terminal T10, we see that Hayami is sitting here with the rest of Murakami's squad, as Hayami just says, well, the commander should also probably come from a squad that mastered tactics in the battle sims, right? Maybe Sua's squad or Mizukami's, Kitazoe's squad also performed really well. And over at Terminal T4, we see that Kitazoe is standing here. He's like, well, tactics-wise, it was actually mostly Shomei who took the reins, but she says she's not great at multitasking, so keeping track of the big picture here could be pretty tough. And Hami's like, all right, that's a very good point. We then see that Urushima is like, well, here's the thing, hang on. Do we even need a general commander? That guy said something about it, but why can't we just all take action on our own? And over at Terminal T9, Kashio butts in, saying, well, I mean, it should be fine if some squads act independently, but we really do need someone evaluating everything from a bird's eye view and issuing various commands. As we just get an image of, all of these battles going on eventually, and Wakamore, fretting here back and forth, which direction do I go? How are we supposed to do this? I don't really know. And over at Terminal T8, Ninamiya butts in saying, well, we should assume that the A-rank team will have a commander when they face us. And Ozma's like, yeah, for sure. And Suwa then says, all right then, how about Kodera then? And over at Terminal T6, we see Kodera's a little bit alarmed. He's like, what is he going on about? As Suwa just continues, he's a sharp thinker and he knows all of the A-rankers' habits. Plus, Squad 6 also has Kitora. And if things get chaotic, well, he can designate local commanders to local areas. And we sort of just see an image with Kodera being like, all right, you guys go handle things over there. You do all of this pretty much. While on the other side, Mizukami, who's getting designated as a commander, is like, hey, you guys go over there. You guys head over there. All of that various stuff pretty much, right? And Mizukami's like, yeah, I mean, I don't see why not. And we see that really a lot of people here also sort of butt in, and we see it's Hasoi, we see it's Oji, Kakizaki, and Kitazoe all say something along the lines of, yeah, that works with us, right? As Kodera just says, alrighty then, in that case, I'm happy to take charge. As he looks up at the timer on the terminals, he's like, alright then, 7 minutes until we begin the test. Gathering information should be our first priority, so please report in with any noteworthy observations you have. And over at Terminal 5, we see that Korai is like, hey, this is Korai of Squad 5 here, and we notice that Squad 11's number is lower than the rest of us, and we're actually really curious about it. Of course, the 997 instead of 1,000 health that their terminal has. As Wakamura is like, oh, yeah, about that. Well, you see, Ninamiya asked us for a favor, and Korai's like, oh, what kind of favor would that be? As Ninamiya just says, well, I actually wanted to know how sturdy these fixed shields are. Squad 11 is located the farthest from the front line, so I asked them to strike their terminal once with Kogetsu. And we see just a little diagram of Hughes hitting it and just like, yeah, bam! And Hughes just says like, hey, I struck it with considerable force, and of course you can then see the result. From this we can extrapolate and summarize that a single attacker would require a dedicated period of 3 minutes to destroy a terminal's shield. And Korai's like, oh yeah, gotcha, that is some really valuable intel. And Kodera just says, alright, thank you guys very much for sharing. I'll keep that in mind when issuing orders. And he just says, alright, anybody else? As Mikumo then speaks up, and he's like, alright, hey, this is Mikumo from Squad 7, and sorry, this isn't related to any observation I made, but when this phase begins, we should perhaps rendezvous at the front line. Solo squads run the risk of being wiped out, so I would suggest we team up as groups of at least 2 squads each. And I really love this moment here as we see Kitora, and she's just like, agreed, and Yuma is like, yeah, I'm down for that. And I love how these are 2 very competent characters. Of course, this is the first time we've seen Yuma all chapter, and we know the relationship that Yuma and Osamu have, but also just the recognition from Yuma, who has been on actual battlefield, sort of being like, yeah, that seems like a very smart move, along with Kitora, who has a solid head on her, also agreeing. Is just a really fun moment in my opinion, and really just shows how far Osamu has come. But either way, over at Terminal T2, we see that Oji has a few different thoughts about all of this, as he's just sitting here rather silent for the moment. As in, rather quickly, we then shift over to Kitazoe's Squad 4 at T4, where we see that Minamisawa is standing here, and he's like, okay, well, grouping us together up front makes sense, but what about the terminals to the rear? Like, they'll just be sitting ducks. And Tanuka's also like, yeah, I mean, maybe he's thinking we'll, like, stonewall our opponents at the front line or something? And Osamu then just says, not exactly. This may sound extreme, but I think we should sacrifice half of our terminals. And Minamisawa's like, what are you talking about? Over at Terminal T3, we see that Fujimaru's like, no, what? And Kakizaki's like, wait, like, come again, Osamu? As Osamu just doubles down. To start with, here in Phase 2, our team of provisional squads has a clear advantage. And we see that Obashima's like, wait, we actually do? And Kodera sort of nods his head, and we even see that Mizukami also thinks like, yeah, he is actually pretty right. As Osamu just continues, we've got 15 more agents than the opposing squad does, or really 13 more if you exclude operators. We even boost a larger army of Trion soldiers. There's strength in numbers, and one thing that the battle sims made especially clear is the sheer power of an overlapping cluster of ranged attacks. As Wakamura remembers back to his time in the battle sims and their strategy being coldly defeated by long-range snipers defeating the Canadian bomber. As Wakamura's just like, yeah, I mean, true enough. As over at T1, we see that Urushima just says, no, duh, dude, any enemy will crumple in the face of a saturation attack. And there's even a note here in the chapter added by Viz that pretty much explains, a saturation attack is a focus attack whose firepower overwhelms the opponent's defensive capabilities. Makes sense. And even Yuma just thinks like, even Jin, like I gotta wonder if it'll work against him. But Osamu just continues. I believe that in this phase, our team's greatest numbers will be pit up against the A-rank team's superior skills. That's the framework that we're looking at. By staying split up in an effort to protect each of our terminals, we'll be throwing away the numbers advantage, our big strength. And Minami-Sawa is like, I mean, okay. As Inukai also just says, so what you're saying, to put it nice and simple, is that it'd be better to stick together even if that means losing a good amount of terminals. Isn't that right? And Osamu says, yes, exactly. Even if we were to lose 6 terminals, and therefore 3,000 points, we'd still have a shot at victory as long as we'd maintained our edge in firepower. On the other hand, fighting to keep every single terminal intact could very well lose us that numbers advantage, and then we'd be looking at a completely uphill battle. And that's why we should rendezvous first and foremost, maintaining our biggest advantage in this scenario. And Oki's like, yeah, I mean, that makes sense to me. As after Osamu said all of this, Oji finally speaks up, as Oji just says, a word, if I may. I mostly agree with Osamu's line of thinking, and of course he says it very long, like Osamu, really putting emphasis on the S there, and I just love how everybody, including like Nirei, and we even see like, it's just very funny to see how everybody sort of reacts to this. Nirei's just like, Osamu, like, what the hell is this guy talking about? Kotori also has a very similar thing of like, Osamu, like, what the hell? Along with Ui, who's like, hey, that's a little bit of a cute nickname, right? But either way, Oji just explains, but hey, I mostly agree with Osamu's line of thinking, but say we do sacrifice a number of terminals. That'll saddle us with a pretty massive point gap, and that puts us at a huge disadvantage if they decide to run out the clock. As we remember the sort of timeout clause in the event that neither team reaches 5,000 points, the winner will be decided who has the more points after the 36-hour time period. As Oji just says, just picture it. We would have to launch an assault on the A-rankers who are hunkering down and showering us and shoring up an ironclad defense. Does that sound peachy to you? And Osamu's just silent, and he's like, yes, actually, I would still prioritize grouping up. And Scudera is like, alright, great then. We'll be adopting Mikumo's suggestion. Terminals 2, 3, and 5 will form our front line on the battlefield. As we of course see, there's a massive river that divides the two sides of the T side and the A side, the temporary squads and the A-ranker squad sides in half. And on the front line there are the terminals 2, 3, 4, and 5. As Kudera says, as soon as the phase begins, I want all other squads to rendezvous with a front line squad as I've indicated. Those already on the front line be on the lookout for threats and gather intel on the local terrain. And everybody on the front line, Oji, Kakizaki, Kitazo, and Kuruma are all like, yep, sure thing, we got it. As Kodera just continues, for all others, find out any information you can along the way and forward it up the chain. And all of the other squads pretty much agree in that way. As we look over at T8, where Ninamiya is just saying, alright, understood then. As Chika and Emma are standing here side by side, and we just get a little bit of focus on Emma's thoughts, as he just thinks, I wouldn't say that Mikumo's plan is necessarily off the mark, but I think the A-rankers are a way bigger threat than he's considering. And then we hear the final words from Kodera, as he's like, right then, you've all got your orders. And we see there are 51 seconds until the test begins. as at this point is what I was alluding to earlier, as we just get a breakdown of all of the characters who are in this battle. We get an idea of, for all of the provisional squads, the name of all of the characters and also the defeat value they pose. On Utagawa's Squad 1, we have Ryo Utagawa with a defeat value of 142 points. Sayako Shiki has 49 points, Wataru Urashima with 32, Yuma Kuga with 127, and Kotaro Tomoe with 82 points. On Oji Squad 2, we have Kakizaki Oji with 128 points, Hikari Nire with 84, Shinosuke Tsuji 79, Tatsuhito Ikoma with 69 points. Nice. There's no way that Ashihara didn't do that on purpose. And rounding out Oji Squad 2 is Yukari Obashima with 79 points. Kakizaki Squad 3. Kuniharu Kakizaki, 113 points. Nono Fujimaru, 121 points. Masaka Kageura, 54 points. Taichi Betsukiyaku, 64 points. And Sumiharu Inukai, 107 points. Kitazoe Squad 4. Hiro Kitazoe, 86 points. Hana Some, 129 points. Kazuda Tanuka, 104 points. Shiro Kokuchihara, 53 points. And Kai Minamisawa, 82 points. Kuruma's Squad 5. Tatsuya Kuruma, 157 points. Rui Osanu, 78 points. Atsushi Hokurai, 78 points. Takuma Yuba, 126 points. Nobaru Korai, 106 points. Kodera Squad 6. Shohei Kodera, 164 points. Rika Rokuta, 45 points. Tsuneki Okudera, 87 points. Yuta Miura, 86 points. And Ai Kitora, 135 points. Suwa's Squad 7, Kotara Suwa, 168 points. Madoka Ui, 120 points. Koji Oki, 112 points. Osamu Mikumo, 131 points. Yoko Katori, 18 points. Oh, it's still so funny that Katori only has 18, man. I feel bad for her, but Katori, you're going to do some great stuff in this arc, and I cannot wait for it. Ninamiya's Squad 8. Masataka Ninamiya, 102 points. Rin Kagami, 95 points. Haruaki Azuma, 108 points. Chika Amatori, 66 points. Yuzuru Ima, 43 points. Mizukami's Squad 9. Satoshi Mizukami, 87 points. Yukikon, 138 points. Tetsuchi Arafune, 134 points. Yutaka Kashio, 115 points. Fumika Teruya, 121 points. Murakami's Squad 10. Ko Murakami, 94 points. Aki Hiyami, 107 points. Daichi Tsutsumi, 103 points. Yuko Kumagai, 79 points. Kakuzaki Kurauchi, 120 points. Wakamura's Squad 11. Rokuro Wakamura, 40 points. Meori Hasoi, 108 points. Yoshito Hanazaki, 58 points. Hisato Sasamori, 97 points. Hyosei, 130 points. A-Rank Team, Katagiri Squad. Tanaka Katagiri, 200 points. Karin Yusikata, 120 points. Yukimaru Ichijo, Toichiro Momozono, and Asumi Amakura, all 100 points. Miwa Squad, Suji Miwa, 200 points. Rin Tsukimi, 120 points. Yosuke Yonea, Toru Narasaka, and Takumi Rindo, all 100 points. Kako Squad, Nozomi Kako, 200 points. An Kobayakawa, 120 points. Futaba Kuroe and Mai Kitagawa, both 100 points. Arashiyama Squad, Jun Arashiyama, 200 points. Haruka Atsuji, 120 points. Mitsuru Tokeda, Kin Satori, and Kyoko Sawamura, all 100 points. Kusakabe Squad, Saki Kusakabe, 200 points. Ryuji Saeki, Kazuma Satomi, Shun Midorikawa, and Hayato Uno, all 100 points. Kazuma Squad, Soya Kazuma, 200 points. Kaho Mikami, 120 points. Raizo Terashima and Michael Cronin, both worth 100 points. Fuyushima Squad, Shinji Fuyushima, 200 points. Risamaki, 120 points. Isami Toma, 100 points. Tamakoma 1. Reiji Kizaki, 200 points. Yori Rindo, 120 points. Kirei Konami, Kyosuke Kurasuma, and Yuichi Jin, all worth 100 points. And finally, last but not least, Tachikawa Squad. Kei Tachikawa, 200 points. Yu Kunichika, 120 points. Kohei Hizumi and Takeru Yuiga, both worth 100 points. As we don't end the chapter there, we end with a quick look as Suicide Squad 7 is getting ready for the away mission test, getting ready to set off once the timer hits 9 o'clock. All of them stand on the roof as Sue is pretty much directing everybody around. All right, Katori takes point, Ui's in the center with me on her right and Mikumo on her left. And Oki, you'll bring up the rear. Ui, I need you to pay close attention to how Katori moves. She's your example on how to operate a Tryon body. And Ui's like, all right then, I got it. And we then see below, 9 a.m. is finally here. As the away mission selection test, Phase 2, long-term combat phase, begins. And that's where we end this chapter number 258 of World Trigger. As everybody is setting off on their way, of course, Katori is taking the lead, and she just jumps off the roof of the gymnasium, getting ready to meet up at the front line with some others of the provisional squads. This chapter was just so awesome, sort of getting into sort of everybody's mentality and just seeing how we're going into this battle, understanding that, hey, Kodera is going to be the one leading the fight. He's going to be the commander for this team, which makes a lot of sense, being that the whole idea is Kodera looks like he may be one to be set up to inheriting, I'm not going to say inheriting, but at some point in the future, leading a fraction of border as long as the neighbor attacks continue to happen. And being that he's in sort of this commanding leadership position, I mean, this could easily eventually put him in the seat of Director Shinoda or, I mean, even at some point, Commander Kido, you know? And I really just like that aspect of the chapter, along with Osamu from the get-go bringing up this very interesting strategy of, like, guys, sacrifice half our terminals. And even when Oji sort of brings up the whole idea of, no, I don't actually agree with this, because what if we've got to gang up and attack all of these people who have this massive defense built, pretty much? And either way, Osamu just says, like, yes, I actually think that's what we should do. Dude, Osamu, I love this moment seeing you do this and sort of everybody else being like, all right then, Osamu knows what he's doing. Let's agree with him. It's just a really fun little thing there. And not to mention, just, I know it took a minute to get through all of the squads, reading through their defeat values and all of that, but just taking a look at everybody, if I'm not mistaken, the character with the highest defeat value by far is Suwa, which means we're going to have a big target painted on the back of Suwa Squad 7 to get him, Ui, Oki, and Osamu, who all have point totals above 110 points. And then Katori will be off doing her other thing. We don't really have to worry about her. But we've got a lot of really awesome moments where Osamu can come in here and be like, hey, I've got a strategy to help protect not only myself, but Suwa and everybody else as well. It's a really fun little thing. And also going through all of the A rankers, defeat values, and all of that, it now just clicked to me that, of course, because in Kusakabe's squad, Kusakabe is the operator, there's just no other operator for that team, so she's worth just a regular 200 for being a commander, and her operator to defeat value is sort of null and void, sort of not really shown anywhere, but it still is a little bit of a cool thing of like, hey, she's not worth 120 points, she is the full 200 because she is the captain, and everybody else is just worth a solid 100. You know, that's all pretty well and cool. And I'm just so hyped getting ready to read what happens next in World Trigger. I definitely haven't read the next few chapters that have already come out at the recording of this video. Again, my bad for getting it out so late, but really, I don't have anything else to say about this chapter of World Trigger. It was absolutely amazing. I love all the designs for all of our characters going into this battle, and it's been a while since we've seen real-time World Trigger action, character-owned characters fighting each other, and everybody's excited for it, and I am as well. And yeah, with all of that being said, thank you guys so very much for watching this video on World Trigger chapter number 258. If you enjoyed this video, I've been covering World Trigger for a while on this YouTube channel. I think since like chapter number 227, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me on that, but I think that is right. There'll be a playlist of all of those videos in the description box of this video, along with the end card of this video as well. World Trigger content will not be going away on the channel for another 7 months like it has been. My goal is to put out one World Trigger video a week until we are caught up with the manga, and then from there, fingers crossed, we don't have any issues with me getting behind on chapters from there on out. And yeah, I really don't have too much else to say. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, check out the rest of my content on the YouTube channel. I also cover series such as Kagurabachi and Marching Crown when I'm not talking about World Trigger, and yeah. With all of that being said, I'll catch you guys next time for World Trigger chapter number 259. Again, this was chapter number 258 titled The Away Mission Test, Phase 2, Part 1. And I'll catch you guys next time. This will be Glowplasma, signing out.